This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special holiday edition of Nightly Business Report. I'm Sue Herrera. Tyler Matheson is off tonight. It is Labor Day, and for all intents and purposes, summer is over. Vacations are now a memory, and that means it's not only time for the kids to go back to school, but it's also time for you to get back to work and focus on your investments, your personal finances, and the market. And that's where we're going to begin, the stock market. The summer saw light volume, as it usually does, but it also had a stretch of very low volatility, and for a while, the major averages traded in a tight range. But that could change between now and the end of the year. And as Dominic Chu tells us, there are some sectors that you may want to pay attention to.
For some experts, the outlook for the rest of the year is somewhat promising.
We're looking for earnings getting at least less bad, and I think we'll turn to the positive here by the end of the year. And you still have what we would argue is lower for longer in terms of interest rates. And whichever way you cut it, lower interest rates do mean higher prices in the long run for assets, and those assets include stocks.
But that doesn't mean that the entire market is just going to start soaring higher. There's a debate as to what parts of the market will lead the way and which parts fall behind. Many strategists believe the sectors like technology and healthcare will help drive things higher.
I actually like healthcare in particular because I think you have, frankly, stronger growth. And frankly, you're also tethered to longer-term secular trends, such as the aging, the demographic dynamics in the U.S., the aging of the boomers. In technology, I think it was reassuring to see a lot of the sort of value tech, big mega cap names performing fairly well through the most recent earnings season.
That might provide some fuel for an overall market move to the upside. Technology and healthcare are two of the biggest parts of the S&P 500, and they've had a good amount of success in reporting better than expected earnings so far this season. As for where there's less optimism, well, there are certain places out there.
I think there are areas of utilities you need to be more concerned about that, frankly, have very high valuations. There are areas of telecom, particularly in some of the carriers, where you've got pricing competition. And then there's, frankly, areas of consumer staples that have long-term secular concerns related to health and wellness and so forth that I'd also be cautious at these valuations.
As investors weigh future events like our presidential election and whether the Federal Reserve will do anything with interest rates, how they weigh different parts of the market could go a long way towards better or worse returns heading into 2017. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Dominic Chu.
So what can we expect from the financial markets between now and the end of the year? And how could it impact your investments? Christina Hooper joins us, Senior Investment Strategist at Allianz Global, and we're going to talk about that. So good to see you, Christina.
Great to see you.
Thanks for joining us on this Labor Day. Let's start with what you expect the tone of the market to be between now and the end of the year.
Our expectation is a lot more volatility. We expect the VIX to pick up and that markets will be buffeted by a variety of different data points and events.
The VIX is the measure of volatility. It does tick up occasionally, but are you looking for a highly elevated level or not so much?
We do expect it to get fairly high. It could easily get up to that 25 level that we've only seen a few times this year, just because there's so much going on this fall.
What are you mainly focused on for the fall? Is it the economic data points? Is it the election? Is it the global environment? Or maybe a combination of all?
It's a potpourri of all those. So our expectation is that the Fed's decision on whether or not to raise rates could have a significant impact if it's not expected, as could the presidential election if it's not expected, the outcome.
Now, there's a lot of rumors in the market that the Fed obviously is data dependent, but they might be going in September instead of December. Would you expect a September rate hike or not?
Well, we think a December rate hike is more likely, and our rationale is that we think the Fed is looking for very compelling evidence. So if they don't get that compelling data, then they're much more likely to sit on their hands and wait until December to be sure. But we think it's an urban legend that they won't act before the November election.
Okay. So what about earnings? Let's get to the fundamentals of the stock market. A lot of people think it's not overvalued, but it's pretty fairly valued. Besides the data points, what do you think will be driving the market? Are earnings going to be decent, do you think?
Well, we think earnings will likely be flat through the end of the year. And so in that kind of environment, there's not a real catalyst. There's no fundamental reason for stocks to move materially higher.
Okay, Christina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Christina Hooper with Allianz Global Investors. September also means it's time to go back to school. And while kids across America are getting ready to sharpen their number 2 pencils, parents are buying them, of course, and a lot of other stuff. Now, you might not know or realize it, but back to school spending is one of the biggest shopping events of the year. Courtney Reagan tells us which retailers may benefit from the spending spree.
Back to school is the second most important retail event of the year, though the National Retail Federation says it's really only strong every 3rd year, and this just happens to be one of those strong years. The NRF says families make do with leftover supplies and older clothing, stocking up only every 3 years. First data says back to school sales do appear to be rebounding this year, with the strongest growth in electronics. Physical stores still reign supreme. Survey data from the NRF show discount stores like Walmart remain the top shopping destination. But online retailers are taking more share than ever before.
I do a lot of shopping online because the brick and mortar stores don't really always have what you're looking for. And online, you really can just pretty much find anything that you're looking for.
Regardless of where consumers are buying, price is key.
I'll bring coupons or things like that. I usually don't like to try to spend full price on things. I usually try to get things that are on sale.
I just go to Old Navy because it's affordable.
Definitely we watch, we're spending, we try to see things in sale, what is a little bit cheaper than another.
And there's good news for bargain hunters. According to First Data, retailers are selling goods for less. That's driving more foot traffic and more transactions than last year. But it's still early. When consumers buy for back-to-school spending is harder to nail down. Some consumers time shopping to take advantage of tax-free holidays, which not every state offers, and the timing varies. Many families do at least some supply shopping early in the summer, while others wait to buy clothing until the school year begins. Partly so kids can see what their friends are wearing, assuming someone buys first, and partly waiting on the weather to turn. Most retailers reporting results in August said it was too early to tell for back to school. However, Macy's and American Eagle are seeing strong denim sales, typically a key back to school item, and Kohl's saw strength in young men's and juniors. First Data says clothing and accessory sales were weak in July, but began to take off in early August. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
This is also the time of year when you may want to reassess your money and freshen things up and make some changes. Joining us now to discuss what you should be doing is Reed Fresa, financial planner with Highland Financial Advisors. Welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So not only is it back to school, as we just discussed, but it's kind of back to, taking a look at your portfolio, your investments. What's the first step?
First thing is really to make sure that you're following a process, and that's really to look at the broad portfolio. We encourage people to keep notes of why they have the portfolio. What's the meaning for it? Mm-hmm. What are their objectives? How they're comparing it for returning the portfolio to a benchmark? And simply just get a booklet and start writing down your thoughts, recording this. That's the first step. When you sit down this time of year, pull that booklet out and go through it and remember why you own the portfolio. What's the purpose for it?
So it's not necessarily a change, and you're not advocating a change in the overall plan, unless obviously your circumstances have changed.
Correct. Yeah.
But just kind of revisiting why you made the decisions that you've made and whether they're still valid.
Yeah, and we always tell people the same criteria you use to establish your portfolio should be used to monitor the portfolio. Mm-hmm. A lot of people make mistakes because they deviate from that plan.
And is that emotion? Emotion,
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so we're professionals. We don't have emotion attached to the money, but that's a big hurdle for people.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And you also say that this is a time of year when you can look at tax implications. Mm-hmm. That may be kind of sophisticated for some investors and very easy for other investors. What are some of the things that you should be taking into consideration?
Yeah, so we believe taxes are a tertiary concern. The first is the broad allocation of your portfolio, rebalancing it periodically, looking at the individual investments. And taxes are important. You can actually look at an average portfolio, a taxable portfolio. Tax consequences on that will be typically about 0.5% to 1% effective tax drag. That's the tax you pay on the activity in the portfolio. With a little bit of effort, you can reduce that to less than 0.25% per year. It doesn't take a lot of effort. But again, those are not huge numbers. That's why we say taxes should not be the main driver.
Right. But it all adds up, right?
It does.
Now, also, you can take a look at your traditional 401k and a Roth 401k. Walk me through some of the factors that may make you change that particular formula.
Right. So a lot of it's changing the way people look at tax planning. So a lot of people are concerned with immediate taxes, but we encourage people to look way in the future. So by diversifying your tax buckets, it gives you more options at retirement. Most people put their 401k money into a tax-deductible traditional 401k. Many people today have the option to put it into a Roth 401k. The Roth 401k, of course, you don't get the deduction, but it grows tax-free in the future. Well, if you're in the very bottom end of the tax bracket or the very top high-income earner, those tax deductions may not mean much to you. So by putting money into a Roth 401k, a married couple over about 10 years, by maximizing Roth 401ks and Roth IRAs, could accumulate about $500,000.
Wow. All right, we'll leave it on that optimistic note, Reed. Thank you so much. Reed Fraser joining us tonight with Highland Financial Advisors. Still ahead, the election could have a big impact on the markets this fall, and there's one startup that's trying to disrupt the political system. Congress will also be getting back to work following its summer break, and there's a lot on the agenda. Eamon Javers is in Washington tonight. Good to see you, Eamon, as always.
Hi, Sue.
It is election season. Is Washington going to get anything done?
Well, there's not a lot of time to get it done, Sue. When the Senate comes back, they're going to have 43 days in session before the end of the year. The House will only have 33 days in session. And as you say, there is a lot to do, including passing appropriations bills to keep the government funded. At some point, if they can't pass all the bills in the normal course of the process, which we expect they won't be able to do, they'll have to pass one of those continuing resolutions to keep the government running throughout the fall. And in the middle of an election season, it will be very interesting to see if Democrats and Republicans can come together to do that when there's so much animosity out there on the campaign trail.
Absolutely. We also have the presidential debates coming up. It has been an unconventional campaign, to say the least. What are we expecting?
Well, we don't know what to expect, just like we haven't known what to expect all along throughout this campaign season. In a traditional year, you'd start to look at the pluses and minuses of both candidates as a debater, look at their past debate performances and say, okay, we have some sense of what to expect here. But in this case, the Donald Trump campaign hasn't even completely confirmed that Trump will debate Hillary Clinton. That's something that still seems to be a little bit up in the air. There might be some incentive for Trump to walk away from the debate, or at least threaten to walk away from the debate, which he did a little bit during the primary season. And then the question of how Hillary Clinton on stage would respond to a Donald Trump. This is somebody who was very, very tough on his Republican competitors during the primary season, even engaging in personal insults and nicknames and all that sort of thing. Hillary Clinton really hasn't been challenged that way one-to-one on live television before, and we'll see whether she handles it better than Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and the others did last winter.
It's going to be very interesting, as it has been all the way through.
Right.
Eamon Javers in Washington. Thanks, Eamon.
You bet.
Well, one startup is trying to make a difference this political season. The company wants to tap into this country's current interest in politics by starting an online forum for real people having constructive discussions. It's run by a pair of San Francisco entrepreneurs who hope to one day turn it into a money-making venture. Tyler Matheson has their story.
Here's one on whether or not the president should use the term radical Islam.
Matt Mahan and James Winden call their site Brigade. They also say it's the world's first network for voters. Users share opinions and discuss hot-button issues like the presidential race, funding education, or gun control. In a little more than a year, users have shared more than 6 million opinions. Those users come from all 50 states. The hope is the discussions can help people to find that holy grail, common ground, from which to develop real solutions to pressing problems.
What this is about is trying to enable people to self-organize, leverage relationships, and get things done.
Signing up is free. You merely provide your home address to help Brigade verify you. Users can see how their views stack up nationally and locally.
I just felt like if anything was going to make our politics work better, it would be social media.
Mahan first got the idea as a student at Harvard back in 2004. He lived down the hall from Mark Zuckerberg. Yes, that Mark Zuckerberg. Mahan used the Facebook, still in its infancy, to find other students likely to join a protest aimed at ending Harvard's investments in 2 Chinese oil companies operating in Sudan during a genocide there. In April 2005, Harvard divested.
So Facebook became a very efficient tool for figuring out who was best connected, who was likely aligned with me, and then as a tool to mobilize them to get behind a campaign.
In 2007, Mahan went to work for a company called Causes, a Facebook app that helped people connect with nonprofits. That's where he met Wyndon. At Causes, they saw 186 million people raise $48 million for various organizations. Wyndon was sold on the power of the digital platform.
When I started to compare the sort of impact you could have through technology in a matter of months or years, that sort of changed my perspective.
By 2013, though, Facebook was moving away from third-party apps. Determined to make another go of it, Mahan and Wyndon teamed with tech investors, big ones, Sean Parker, Ron Conway, and Mark Benioff in 2014, betting Brigade could be both useful and profitable. But how? Paul Reichhoff runs the nonprofit site Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. The IAVA test partnered with Brigade last year. He thinks nonprofits will pay Brigade someday the same way recruiters pay to find prospective employees on LinkedIn.
Brigade gives us an opportunity to connect with someone who might be interested in gun rights, or they might be interested in immigration, or they might be interested in baseball. And if we can inject veterans issues into that conversation, then we can expand our market.
For now, though, Brigade focuses on individual users like Stefan Nicolo, an infrastructure investor. Nicolo thinks Brigade might make money selling its data.
There stands to be an opportunity to package that and make it available to folks who would have an interest in using that data. So think campaigns, think pundits, think networks.
Profit isn't the driver just yet. Mahan and Wyndon believe, though, that the path to that profit will become clear if they just stay on point.
At the core of politics, at the core of social change, are relationships. And the technology layer that we're seeking to build here is simply meant to allow individuals to leverage those relationships more efficiently, more effectively, and ultimately create more rapid change.
Brigade has recently given users some new tools. Now you can map your own district to see how your views align with those of other voters and the politicians in your area. Coming up, want to be your own boss? An electrician figured out how to do it, and now he's sharing his secrets to success. In the spirit of Labor Day, we're looking at the labor market and the growing video game industry in particular. The Pokemon Go craze is just the latest evidence of the increased appetite for gaming. That means demand for designers and coders is more intense than ever. Kate Rogers is in Salt Lake City.
Year-old Nabiha Barkatola isn't spending her summer playing sports or hitting the beach. She's learning to make video games instead.
All of the guys at school, they would be like, "No way, you play games? You're so weird." I think that's the reason why a lot of girls don't go into gaming.
Nabiha is part of Girls Make Games, a summer camp that's trying to introduce more girls to opportunities in an industry that's long been dominated by males. Over the past 3 summers, the camp has taught more than 800 girls the fundamentals of programming and design.
At first, I had no idea how to code, what is coding? But after attending Girls Make Games, I'm pretty confident in my coding.
During the camp, girls get to create team video games, pitch them to industry experts, and even get them published. For founder Layla Shabir, it's a chance to dispel the misconception that women aren't interested in video games, as well as to foster female talent that game companies are now actively seeking.
They want a diverse workforce. They want more ideas and more voices, and this is how they're going to get it.
These girls will be glad they got a head start in an industry that's booming. The global gaming industry is poised to hit $90 billion by the year 2020, according to PwC, and experts within the industry say that jobs could grow by about 10% in the next several years. That growth is the reason companies like Salt Lake City-based WildWorks are expanding. Beyond WildWorks, Salt Lake City is home to other big gaming studios, including Electronic Arts.
Right now, we're looking for engineers or programmers who have a background in the gaming industry.
With current staff of over 120, WildWorks is also looking for game designers, artists, and community managers. And since the primary audience for their flagship game Animal Jam is girls, they'd like to hire more women.
We want to continue to augment our female staff because they bring a perspective, a variety, an experience, especially as we make games that resonate more with girls than with boys.
3D artist Emily Vincent is new to the industry and feels optimistic about its outlook.
You definitely still feel a bro culture kind of going on, but I think women are getting more and more involved as they realize that they can and be accepted.
Shabir is excited too.
How their eyes light up when they talk about their games, and when they say things like, I had no idea making a game was this easy or making a game was this fun. I can't imagine what they're going to end up making, and I'm very excited for that.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Kate Rogers, Salt Lake City.
What does an electrician know about running a company? Well, some know quite a bit, others not so much. And that's why a New Jersey electrician who once said, there's gotta be a better way, and then figured it out, got the bright idea to share his business management knowledge, for a price, of course. The way he sees it, he's helping others create more jobs than he could ever create on his own. Tyler Matheson has his story.
That's a big deal.
Mike Agliaro can get a charge out of people. And no wonder. At age 19, he became a full-time electrician. 3 years later, he and a partner started Gold Medal Electrical Contracting in central New Jersey. They worked long hours, did everything themselves, but like so many small business owners, they did little else.
We got so burnt out that my partner came to me one morning and he said, Mike, I'm done.
In 2004, after 11 years, it was either unplug the business or find a better way. So they invested heavily to learn how to actually run a serious business.
We spent over $800,000 on training the very best we can find.
They started reading. They went to Disney to learn about corporate culture, Zappos to become more efficient. But one thing stuck out.
Everything's marketing, and marketing is everything.
The simplest of tweaks helped turn their business and their lives around.
I did some study and I found out, well, yellow is the first color the eye sees. So I was like, let's have yellow trucks. Nobody had yellow trucks out there. And people were telling us, I see you everywhere. I was like, everywhere? We had like 3 trucks. I was like, okay, we're on to something big right now.
Very big. In a few years, Gold Medal added plumbing, heating, and cooling services. Now, with 145 trucks and 190 employees, Gold Medal is on track to hit $32 million in sales this year. He's only in the office about 2 or 3 times a week now, but he's still busy because other service company owners started asking how he did it. That's when he realized his knowledge, his experience, might be more valuable to them even than it is to him.
Nobody's really stepping in and really serving these people. So I said, why don't we go out there and let's just change lives for anybody in any type of service business.
It was the germ of what would become a multi-million-dollar idea. Phone calls and Facebook posts grew into a full-blown consulting business in 2013. 1 year in, another marketing change, a new name for the consultancy, CEO Warrior.
Change trend.
Annual sales, more than $3 million. Eric Corbett became a Warrior 3 years ago. He was about to buy his brother out and take over the Maryland plumbing business their father started in 1960. He signed up for a 4-day Warrior event.
Yes! We were pretty average at that point. And we said, you know what? We don't want to be average.
Leadership. 5 times a year, Agliaro hosts these events, drawing 100 or so service-oriented companies that pay about $7,500 each. Corbett later upgraded to the Warrior Fast Track. That stepped-up tier costs $36,000, but gets you full-time access to Agliaro's business improvement team, first-hand looks inside gold medal, even a taste of martial arts, a longtime Agliaro passion. There are about 95 fast trackers like Corbett. In 3 years, his business has grown from 22 employees to 30. Revenues are up from less than $4 million a year to more than $4.5.
We're really healthy as a company, and we're positioned to have some really great growth here moving forward.
That's the kind of rewiring Mike Agliaro likes.
Why do I exist on this planet? And it's not to be an electrician. It was never to be that. I knew there was a bigger part in it, and this is the bigger why for me, change lives.
Agliaro has also written 4 books, and he's beginning to invest in commercial real estate, following the advice he found himself giving to other CEOs to manage and protect their wealth by diversifying their business interests. And if you flew anywhere this weekend, you probably noticed the crowds. More than 15.5 million people were expected to travel by airplane this weekend, and that is up 4% from last year. That'll do it for us. Thanks for watching this special holiday edition of Nightly Business Report. I'm Sue Herrera. Have a great evening, and we will see you all tomorrow.